Emergency hospital drama. Jinger Duggar's family in tears after sudden collapse. Gasps echoed through the hospital corridor as the stretcher rolled past. Nurses rushed in, doctors barked urgent commands, and family members stood frozen in shock. The name whispered again and again, as though repeating it could undo the reality unfolding. Jinger has collapsed. The scene, dramatic and chaotic, was not what anyone expected from a woman who had always been presented as composed, steady, and resilient. Yet here she was, pale, unconscious, and surrounded by machines meant to keep her alive. The news of Jinger Duggar's sudden collapse has ripped through her family and community like a lightning strike, sparking tears, fear, and questions no one can easily answer. At its core, this is not simply a medical scare. It is a story about pressure, about a woman crushed under the weight of expectations, secrecy, and the suffocating demands of a life lived under scrutiny. What we are witnessing is the unraveling of the myth that strength and silence are the same thing. Jinger's sudden collapse is more than a health crisis. It is the climax of years of strain, gaslighting, and control. To understand what happened in that hospital emergency room, we must trace the timeline that led her there. In the early years, Jinger's life was painted as ideal. She was dutiful, smiling, and endlessly portrayed as the obedient daughter who transitioned seamlessly into the role of devoted wife. But behind those carefully posed photographs, cracks were forming. Friends close to the family recall whispered worries about her exhaustion, her stress, her constant battle to appear perfect. The Duggar brand demanded flawlessness. Flawless smiles, flawless faith, flawless families. Anything less was hidden, denied, or spun into a narrative of resilience. But resilience has its limits, and Jinger's body has now told the truth her lips could not. Those who saw her collapse describe a moment that seemed unreal. One minute she was speaking with relatives during a family gathering. The next she stumbled, clutched her chest, and collapsed to the floor. Panic erupted. Children screamed. Relatives shouted for help. An ambulance was called within minutes, but those minutes felt like hours. When paramedics arrived, the situation was dire. Jinger was unresponsive, her pulse weak, her breathing shallow. Every second was a reminder that this was no minor fainting spell. It was a collapse born from something much deeper. Analysis of this moment reveals how years of hidden battles can manifest in a single dramatic event. Stress unchecked becomes poison. Emotional strain disguised as strength corrodes from the inside. And when you combine secrecy with control, when you silence cries for help under the guise of family unity, the body itself becomes the final messenger. Jinger's collapse is not just a medical incident. It is a symbolic breakdown of the entire system around her. At the hospital, the drama intensified. Family members reportedly wept in the waiting area, torn between fear and guilt. Some prayed loudly, others sat in stunned silence. Insiders say that when doctors emerged with initial reports, the news was grim. Jinger's condition was serious enough to require immediate interventions to stabilize her vitals. While they did not disclose every detail, words like stress-related complications and critical monitoring were used. For a family so intent on keeping appearances polished, this medical emergency could not be hidden. The hospital walls, unlike the family home, do not protect secrets. The timeline of events leading here stretches back years. First came the subtle restrictions in her married life, rules disguised as guidance, control masked as protection. Then came the conflicts, arguments behind closed doors that leaked into public in the form of Jinger's tired eyes and strained smiles. Those who knew her well noticed how often she excused herself, how frequently she appeared drained, how carefully she measured her words in interviews, as though terrified of saying the wrong thing. These were warning signs, ignored by those who preferred to maintain the facade. Now the warning signs have turned into alarms. What makes this collapse even more dramatic is the hypocrisy it exposes. For years, the Duggar narrative has been one of order, morality, and family strength. Yet the reality behind closed doors has often been darker. Accusations of cruelty, manipulation, and endless pressure to conform. Jinger, like many of the family, became both participant and victim of the system, playing her role while privately enduring its weight. To collapse so publicly is to shatter the illusion. No amount of spin can hide the sight of a woman rushed into emergency care while her family cries in the waiting room. Emergency doctors working on Jinger's case have reportedly warned that her recovery will not be swift. The physical body may heal with time, but the underlying causes, stress, strain, and emotional suffocation, cannot be ignored if there is to be any lasting improvement. Yet this is where the greatest danger lies. In families built on silence, the instinct is to cover up, to blame fatigue, to deny the deeper truths. If that happens, if the root causes are buried yet again, then this collapse will not be the end. It will be the beginning of further decline. Observers outside the hospital are already drawing conclusions. Commentators see Jinger's crisis as symbolic of the hidden dangers in systems of control. They point to the pattern: public perfection, private pain. They use words like gaslighting, control, and manipulation to describe the forces that push individuals past their breaking points. And they argue that unless these systems are dismantled, more collapses, literal and metaphorical, are inevitable. Inside the family, however, reactions are split. Some relatives are reportedly urging for transparency, admitting that the strain on Jinger has been obvious for years. Others cling to the old ways, insisting that the collapse was exaggerated, that the family should present a united front, that airing the truth will only bring shame. This divide reveals the core of the Duggar dilemma: image versus reality, loyalty versus truth, survival versus silence. For Jinger herself, the battle is now more than physical. It is psychological, emotional, and spiritual. To recover means more than regaining her strength. It means reclaiming her voice, breaking free from the carousals of denial, and refusing to be controlled by the same forces that helped bring her to this point. Her collapse is a warning, a turning point, and perhaps even an opportunity for transformation, if she chooses to confront the truth rather than retreat back into silence. The tears shed in that hospital waiting room reflect more than fear of losing a loved one. They are tears of regret, of recognition, of the sudden realization that the system which promised security may have instead delivered destruction. For the first time, the facade has cracked so widely that even the most loyal defenders cannot deny it. The image of Jinger lying in a hospital bed is not one the Duggar brand can easily repackage. It is too raw, too undeniable, too symbolic of everything they have tried to suppress. And so the story continues, not as a neat resolution, but as an unfolding drama with consequences that reach far beyond one family. The emergency hospital drama of Jinger Duggar is more than a headline. It is a reckoning. It forces us to ask, how many others are collapsing silently, their struggles hidden beneath forced smiles and rehearsed perfection? How long can control masquerade as love before the body, the mind, or the soul rebels? And most urgently, what happens next for Jinger, whose life now hangs in a fragile balance between healing and returning to the cycle that nearly destroyed her? Thanks for watching. Doctors working on Jinger's case have reportedly warned that her recovery will not be swift. The physical body may heal with time, but the underlying causes, stress, strain, and emotional suffocation, cannot be ignored if there is to be any lasting improvement. Yet this is where the greatest danger lies. In families built on silence, the instinct is to cover up, to blame fatigue, to deny the deeper truths. If that happens, if the root causes are buried yet again, then this collapse will not be the end. It will be the beginning of further decline. Observers outside the hospital are already drawing conclusions. Commentators see Jinger's crisis as symbolic of the hidden dangers in systems of control. They point to the pattern: public perfection, private pain. They use words like gaslighting, control, and manipulation to describe the forces that push individuals past their breaking points. And they argue that unless these systems are dismantled, more collapses, literal and metaphorical, are inevitable. Inside the family, however, reactions are split. Some relatives are reportedly